Imagine getting that dreaded call from your kid's school, saying their dad never showed up to pick them up. It's completely out of character. Total panic sets in, right? Well, that is exactly what happened on the afternoon of April 19, 2023, when a woman named Mary Ann called the Hudson Police Department for a welfare check on her ex, Dr. Todd Morgan. Now, Todd was a beloved 41-year-old Cleveland State University professor, and by all accounts, a super devoted father of two. But when officers arrived at his home, they didn't find a forgetful parent. They stepped into an absolute nightmare. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to follow the digital breadcrumbs of a truly baffling investigation.
When first responders arrived, they walked into just total chaos. You can actually see it reflected in this initial radio chatter. They found Todd lying in a massive pool of blood with a devastating head injury. It was so severe that, at first glance, one of the officers actually assumed they were looking at a tragic, self-inflicted gunshot wound. So the working theory for those first few frantic minutes was suicide. But as they secured the area and started really looking around, that theory completely evaporated.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. A baffling crime scene. So if this was a self-inflicted wound, where was the gun? Detectives took over the scene. They searched literally everywhere. Under the body, around the room, no weapon whatsoever. But honestly, the most baffling physical clue was the back door. The door frame was completely busted, but get this, the force hadn't come from the outside. It was broken open from the inside. This told investigators a terrifying story. The killer was likely trapped inside the house after the murder and had to forcefully break their way out just to escape.
As they cleared the rest of the house, the physical clues just became more and more confusing. The autopsy later revealed Todd had been shot not just once, but 7 times, including a fatal shot at close range. They also found a lone 9mm shell casing by the staircase, totally separated from the others. Then there was a bloody shoe print. They actually had to go and check the boots of every single paramedic and officer on the scene, but it didn't match any of them. And finally, Todd's master bedroom was completely ransacked. We're talking condoms, alcohol bottles, and snacks scattered everywhere, like someone had frantically searched for something. Yet the children's room was completely untouched. So yeah, this was no suicide. This was a highly calculated, deeply personal murder.
Moving on to Section 2. Clues that didn't fit.
While forensics were processing the horrific scene inside, detectives shifted their focus outside. They started canvassing the neighborhood, and, this is where the first real breaks in the case began to surface. Detectives spoke to neighbors Eugene and Sherry, who lived directly across the street. They, along with the timestamps from their Ring camera, provided this absolutely crucial timeline. At 5 a.m., a silver car was already parked at Todd's house. Fast forward to 7:20 a.m., and they witnessed a suspect with a small frame and long dark hair walk quickly out to the car, grab what looked like a box or a package, and take it back inside. A few minutes later, right around the time the neighbors remembered hearing what they thought were popping noises, that person came back out, got into the silver car, and casually drove down the driveway.
Now, back inside the house, investigators noticed something incredibly specific. Nothing of major value was stolen, and Todd's computers and iPads left completely untouched. But his cell phone was missing. The killer deliberately took his phone, likely thinking, it would destroy any evidence of their communication or relationship. But by taking that phone, the killer unwittingly created the massive turning point of this entire case.
Which brings us to Section 3, the accidental 911 call.
Okay, so the investigation kicks into high gear as detectives pull the emergency dispatch logs, and they found something absolutely shocking. At exactly 7:21 a.m., which, remember, is the precise time Eugene and Sherry saw the suspect rushing around, and right when those gunshots rang out, a 911 call was placed from a cell phone originating right at Todd Morgan's address. Dispatch answered, but they heard no one on the line. It was an accidental SOS activation. Like when you grip your phone way too tight or mash the power button repeatedly in a panic. The killer had accidentally pocket dialed 911 right in the middle of the chaotic murder. And when police traced that number, it didn't belong to Todd. It belonged to an Akron woman named Terreionna Paschal. And wouldn't you know it, she perfectly matched the neighbor's description. Thin, long dark hair, and she drove a silver car. And this brilliantly illustrates how she was caught. When detectives pulled the location data, they saw Terreionna's phone moving away from the crime scene. But here is the kicker. Just 6 minutes after that accidental 911 call, Terreionna's phone and Todd's stolen phone were pinging perfectly together, traveling at 60 miles per hour down the Interstate 271 split. They were literally moving in tandem until Todd's phone suddenly went dark, likely because it was tossed out the window.
Let's unpack this further in Section 4, a deadly digital trail.
So, the net was rapidly closing in. Detectives secured warrants for Terreionna's phone data and financial records. Just look at this timeline of Cash App transactions from the morning of the murder. It reveals a chilling escalation. First, Todd successfully sent Terreionna $50. But just 23 minutes later at 7:25 a.m., literal moments after the gunshots, there was an attempted transfer of a whopping $1,000 from Todd's account to Terreionna's account, which, by the way, was registered under the name Black Beauty. Now, that $1,000 transaction failed because it triggered a security verification on Todd's missing phone that the killer just couldn't bypass. This timeline paints a terrifying picture of financial escalation and gives us a very clear motive right before the shooting.
The digital records also revealed a secret life that Todd had been hiding from his family. Turns out, he and Terreionna actually met on the dating app Bumble. She used aliases like Shivahan and presented herself as someone who expected payment for services. But honestly, the most chilling discovery of all, that lone 9mm shell casing found by Todd's stairs was entered into a national database, and it came back as a direct match to a firearm used in an unsolved 2021 Cleveland homicide. The main suspect in that cold case? Terreionna Paschal. She had slipped through the cracks before, but detectives were absolutely not going to let that happen again.
Which leads us to our final act. Section 5, the final trap. So, police tracked Terreionna down to her sister's apartment and brought her in for questioning. And from the very moment she sat in that chair, Terreionna blatantly denied everything. When detectives showed her photos and asked about Todd Morgan, she casually stated, "I really don't remember if I met him before. I don't recall their name." She just sat there, even smiling at times, completely denying she had ever stepped foot in Hudson, despite her phone pinging at his house all night long. But the detectives pushed harder, right? They bring up the financial records. They ask her point blank why a man she claims she didn't know would send her $50 on Cash App on the very morning of his murder. And her excuse was just absurdly dismissive. She told the police, "I get random cash. $50 is nothing. He might have been buying chocolate." Buying chocolate. It was a desperate, almost laughable attempt to explain away hard, undeniable digital facts.
So, the crucial point is that while Terreionna was verbally denying everything, her physical and digital footprint made escape absolutely impossible. Forensics matched her DNA to a condom found in Todd's ransacked bedroom. And her phone? After the murder, she actually swapped out her SIM card, thinking that would hide her tracks. Her search history literally included the exact phrase, "Can police track my phone if I remove my SIM?" On top of that, investigators found she had obsessively checked local news sites over 40 times to see if she had been named as a suspect in the Hudson murder.
Terreionna Paschal initially pleaded not guilty, clearly thinking she could beat the system one more time. But the sheer volume of cell phone tracking, ring camera footage, Cash App logs, and DNA, it was a digital trap she just couldn't break out of. Facing an absolute mountain of indisputable evidence, on the very day her trial was set to begin, she folded. She accepted a plea deal for 20 years to life in prison for the murder of Dr. Todd Morgan.
It's such a tragic end to a brilliant professor's life, born out of a secret arrangement that went horribly wrong. But it leaves us with a pretty chilling realization. Between the accidental 911 pocket dials, the GPS pings, the ring cameras, and the Cash App logs, Terreionna Paschal literally never stood a chance of getting away with this. It really makes you wonder, in an era where every single digital move is tracked and recorded, how much of a secret life can ever truly stay hidden? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.